Master Chief Petty Officer Reagan Maddox did not expect her Tuesday to begin with diplomatic cosplay and end with interstellar psychological warfare, but hey, she'd skipped worse briefings. She was halfway through a protein bar, still tasting of regret and peanut butter, when the galactic simulation pod hissed open with the smugness of a spaceship designed by a committee that had never met actual danger or duct tape. She blinked at the oversized neon sign above the chamber. Welcome to the Sovereign Stratoclash, battle for cosmic dominion. Wow, she muttered. Somebody majored in overcompensation. Behind her, 17 alien delegations twitched. In ceremonial awe, their robes flapping in artificial wind generated solely to create dramatic tension. Humanity's official delegate, some poor pencil pusher named Harold, had apparently rage-quit diplomacy and was last seen locked in a bathroom whispering, "They want me to chant, I don't chant." So naturally, someone in Earth's booth screamed, "Just send the seal," and shoved Maddox forward like a human sacrifice in body armor. The Council of Starborn Hierarchs didn't even flinch, assuming her dirty shirt with the words, "Simulation this nerds," was some obscure Earth war. Blessing. Maddox squinted at the simulation console and clicked what she assumed was the mandatory safety training video, only to be immediately digitized into what looked like a gladiator arena, co-designed by an over-caffeinated dungeon master and a quantum graphic designer with emotional issues. The announcer AI chimed in. Initializing avatar selection, please honor tradition by chanting the phrase of preparedness. Maddox scratched her head, coughed, and muttered, "Yeah, no." She clicked. The first avatar available, then adjusted one setting. Restore shoulder strength to pre-surgery levels, thanks. She hit confirm and was instantly dropped into round 1. Her opponent, Mist Wraith Kalor, hovered in a dignified swirl of luminescent fog, whispering threats in 8 languages of vaporized smugness. Maddox, unimpressed, sneezed, hard. Kalor's form convulsed, imploded, and disqualified itself from the competition. The simulation declared it a tactical sonic pulse and awarded her bonus points for innovation. "Cool," she said, picking digital gunk off her boot. "One down." The crowd of dignitaries murmured like a flock of startled bureaucrats at an unscheduled coffee spill. Overseer Orbstaff, a sentient luminous cloud in a glass orb, floated in horrified circles. "This is not how battle protocols are meant to be interpreted." Maddox grinned. "You've obviously never been to a team-building retreat in Quantico." Round 2 dropped her into a labyrinth of reflective crystal, where she faced a being known as Hyperlogic Bladeform Delta 9, a hyper-optimized quantum swordsman created from algorithmic enlightenment. It introduced itself with a 16-minute monologue on fractal honor and the ethics of anticipation. Maddox waited until it paused for rhetorical breath and casually muttered, "Hey, why don't you hit yourself?" Then tossed a pocket mirror at its face. Delta 9 twitched, reevaluated its entire probability matrix, and shut itself down with a soft ping. SANDY, the announcer AI, hesitated before broadcasting. Victory awarded to human operative via unexpected logic recursion, processing emotional confusion. Maddox winked. "Welcome to my brain, Sandy." By now, the dignitaries were panicking politely, an art form among galactic elites. The Veil Zorith Ascendancy's high priest attempted to recalibrate their ceremonial energy incense while muttering something about cosmic contamination by sarcasm. Meanwhile, Maddox was on round 3, squaring off against a crystalline war priest who fractured into a kaleidoscope of rainbow death fractals. She didn't even flinch. She pulled a laser pointer from her virtual gear belt, waved it in chaotic spirals like she was entertaining a cat in 0G, and watched the entire crystalline array chase it into a gravity rift. Victory. Again. This time, even SANDY sounded impressed. Combat anomaly logged. Human operator utilizing recreational devices as strategic misdirection. Commencing admiration routine. Maddox dusted off her virtual gloves. Let's be honest, I'm just vibing through your sacred tournament. This is a Tuesday for me. Just as she was starting to enjoy the absurdity of it all, a thunderclap shook the chamber. The final challenger appeared in an explosion of ritualistic pageantry. Emperor Exomax of the Vale Zorith descended like a particularly self-important beetle dipped in precious metals, flapping 4 ceremonial wings and intoning his name in iambic hexameter. Maddox, hands on hips, looked him up and down. You. Planning to fight or audition for Galactic Bachelor Ritual Edition? Exomax snarled. I am the storm, the blade, the silence between stars. Maddox nodded. Cool. I'm the migraine that follows bad poetry. Let's do this. As she floated into the 0G arena, the crowd held its collective breath. Maddox, meanwhile, munched the rest of her granola bar and grinned. Let's see how far I can break this thing before someone reads the manual. Gravity had never been Reagan Maddox's friend, but 0G with a sarcastic twist? That was practically her love language. As the simulation arena shimmered into existence, a floating lattice of transparent walkways, rotating spheres, and warping, gravitational pockets, Maddox took a long sip of her imaginary coffee and sighed. Y'all built a whole space Rubik's Cube and called it combat. Emperor Exomax emerged across the battlefield, hovering on an invisible platform with all the understated grace of a Vegas magician overdosing on hubris. His limbs pulsed. With ceremonial alloys, his wings flared dramatically, and his voice boomed like someone who got kicked out of Slam Poetry Night for taking himself too seriously. This is your final hour, Terran. The Stratoclash bows to the inevitable supremacy of Vale Zorith transcendence. Maddox responded by mid-air, somersaulting onto a glowing ledge, flipping him off with both hands and shouting, Buddy, I've had more intimidating fights inside a porta-john during an earthquake. The match began with a thunderous gong, completely unnecessary but apparently vital to the sacred rhythm of galactic warfare, and Exomax lunged forward, wings slicing through the air with sonic elegance. Maddox dodged effortlessly, bouncing between shifting gravity wells like she was playing dodgeball with physics. She kicked off a rotating prism, spun mid-air, and landed boot first on a low-orbiting cube. So just to clarify, she called. Out. Your legendary assault involves pirouettes and sparkles? Exomax roared and summoned a temporal spear made of coalesced starlight. She ducked it with a laugh, yanking a floating maintenance panel from the arena wall and hurling it like a discus. It dinged harmlessly off his ceremonial chest plate but knocked him into a gravity loop that slingshotted him across the arena like a drunk drone. SANDY, now audibly smirking, announced, Tactical redirection achieved via panel detritus. Emperor Exomax experiencing unintended orbital elegance. Maddox pounced, vaulting across gaps with movements that made no sense to anyone raised in symmetrical dimensions. The watching dignitaries gasped with every physics-defying bounce, unsure whether they were witnessing brilliance or blasphemy. Emperor Exomax stabilized and countered with a spiral of gravitic pulses meant to trap her in a time-slow bubble, but Maddox simply activated Operation Wing It, her internal name, for pure improvisation, and jammed a simulated tactical pen into the floor's resonator node. The field glitched, time hiccuped, the air snapped like a rubber band stretched past cosmic tolerance. She used the stall to sprint up an invisible incline, kicked off a floating glyph tablet mid-glitch, and body-checked Exomax right out of his pompous monologue. You were saying, she muttered, landing in a crouch as the stunned Emperor spun through the anomaly like an emotionally repressed Beyblade. Maddox tapped her comlink, which wasn't connected to anything but made her feel better. Hey, Command, I've neutralized the metaphorical threat. Do I win a stress ball or a mug that says, I survived your crap? The audience chamber behind the sim arena exploded into noise. Sacred gasps, outrage cries, and one bureaucrat from the Order of Rational Harmonics vomiting into a probability bin. Overseer Orbstaff attempted to reboot the tradition protocol. Mid-freakout, shrieking about unauthorized velocity expressions and existentially vulgar maneuvering, Meanwhile, SANDY had gone full snark. Human contestant displays combat initiative categorized as rogue subversion, emotional outcome, admiration, and concern for continued simulation stability. Maddox leaned against a shimmering pillar, catching her breath. If this place crashes, I want it on the record that I was winning when it broke. Just as she said it, the arena destabilized again, rippling with backlash from her latest gravity hack. Emperor Exomax, now floating sideways and radiating wounded pride, pointed a ceremonial staff at her and growled, "You defile the sacred geometry of the Strataclash." She raised an eyebrow. "And you sound like a geometry teacher with rage issues. Let's call it even." As she lunged toward him for one final strike, the simulation flared red. Warning runes exploded across the air. Exomax chanted something in ancient Veil-Zorith tongue, possibly a last-ditch spell, possibly just a cosmic temper tantrum. But Maddox had already grabbed one of the gravity well orbs and yeeted it like a dodgeball straight into the arena's central node. Time paused. Exomax froze mid-screech. A harmonic ping echoed. Then, in complete silence, the Emperor's avatar cracked, folded in on itself, and imploded like a divine souffle under a harsh stare. Maddox hovered there, blinking. "Huh," she muttered. "So that's what happens when you poke the space bear in just the right bit." SANDY cleared its non-existent throat. Simulation victory awarded to contestant Reagan Maddox of Earth. Notably, she remains undefeated by tradition, unimpressed by authority, and undefeated in tactical sass. The arena shattered into stardust, the galactic audience shrieked in theological disarray, and Maddox, spinning gently through the void, flipped upside down and deadpanned. "Do I get a trophy or do I have to mug Exomax's ghost for one?" Maddox landed with a grunt as the simulation ejected her back into reality, boots skidding across the polished obsidian floor of the Galactic Council's observation dome, now a war zone of flailing robes, panicked rituals, and at least 3 alien species visibly fainting. One monk from the Order of Rational Harmonics was curled into a ball, reciting the quadratic formula like a prayer for sanity. Meanwhile, a Veil-Zorith dignitary attempted to decapitate himself with his own ceremonial sash in protest of simulation, desecration by comedic insurgency. Maddox stood up, cracking her neck with a satisfying pop, and muttered, "You'd think I broke their religion by winning with sarcasm and spatial abuse." She was still wiping leftover stardust off her sleeves when a security droid hovered in with all the urgency of a caffeinated intern and declared, "By Directive 4F4, Post-Victory Gladiatorial Panic Protocol, you are hereby summoned for a diplomatic debrief." She blinked. "Oh, good. More talking. That always ends well." They escorted her into a chamber filled with suspiciously large chairs, each occupied by an alien leader doing their best impression of someone not internally screaming. The lead figure, Ambassador Vorthas of the Rational Harmonists, with his 6 eyes and a voice like someone narrating an audiobook of a tax code, began, "Human entity. We find ourselves in existential quandary. Your performance defies all expected outcome distributions. Your methods were unquantifiable." Maddox crossed her arms. "Yeah, that's what my last CO said before I got promoted." Vorthas attempted to smile, which unfortunately looked like his face was folding into itself. "We must inquire, what tactical doctrine empowered such decisive success?" Maddox pulled out a crumpled notepad from her cargo pocket and tossed it onto the holographic table. It had one line. Step 1, be unpredictable. Step 2, win anyway. The council stared at it like she'd just handed them a copy of the Necronomicon written in finger paint. A Frondar Guild representative, a sentient vine bundle wrapped in psychic pollen, hissed, "The sacred simulations were not meant to be interpreted with levity." She shrugged. "Neither was my last combat tour, but we still had bingo nights between firefights. Humor keeps the blood inside." SANDY, now bizarrely patched into the council feed for commentary, chimed in with a voice dripping newfound sass. Statistical anomaly. Human adaptation rate exceeds median by 3,042%. Recommend simulation patch. Also, she names her tactical maneuvers after breakfast cereals. Maddox didn't deny it. That last round was called Honey Nut Gravity Loops. At this, several factions collectively lost their composure. The Vale Zorith ambassador began speaking in backwards. Hexameter possibly casting a legal curse. Overseer Orbstaff floated into the chamber like a malfunctioning lava lamp and declared, "We must invalidate the outcome due to spiritual violations, gravitational misconduct, and excessive snark." Maddox squinted. "You're just mad." "I didn't kiss the sacred orb before round 1, Orbstaff sputtered. "That orb represents a millennium of cosmic stability." She smirked. "Yeah? Well, it had smudges." With decorum now 6 feet deep and rotting, the council called for an emergency vote to determine Earth's standing. During the vote, chaos blossomed like a bureaucratic lotus, committees forming subcommittees to evaluate whether sarcasm counted. As a weapon, the Order of Harmonics, having a collective math stroke over probability variance, and one delegate trying to detain Maddox, using a ritual net of containment, which she shredded with her multi-tool and a bored expression. When it was over, the final vote barely passed. Earth, formerly a fringe observer species, was declared a provisional strategic power, pending review of its combat philosophy, which most agreed was either genius or war crimes disguised as a coffee break. Maddox was offered a seat on E, the Stratoclash Rule Revision Board. She declined unless they agreed to rename it the Committee of Awkward Apologies for Underestimating Humans. Her face was now on 17 alien conspiracy blogs. One Vile Zorith news channel called her the Destroyer of Symmetry. A harmonist meme collective simply called her the Glitch. Earth's diplomatic office, meanwhile, had yet to stop laughing. They responded to the Council's request for Earth's tactical doctrine with a PowerPoint file titled, "You Tried Rules. Try Chaos." Maddox was recalled to the human delegation ship and greeted with applause, protein bars, and someone handing her a t-shirt that read, "I broke the galaxy and all I got was this lousy respect." She accepted it with a grin, leaned back in her chair and said, "So, what's next? Galactic Bake-Off? I hear those are sacred too." SANDY sighed over the intercom. God help us if she learns about the grand dessert trials of Delanthu. Prime. Maddox raised an eyebrow. "Oh, you mean Cake War 3, Frosting Protocol? Count me in." The Grand Council of Starborn Hierarchs, once a bastion of solemnity, had devolved into what could only be described as a panicked improv session performed by creatures allergic to unpredictability. Following Maddox's disruptive victory and Earth's sudden elevation to provisional strategic power, the galaxy's bureaucratic aristocracy scrambled to contain the narrative like it was radioactive sarcasm in a sacred tea ceremony. Meanwhile, Reagan Maddox had taken up temporary residence aboard the human delegation ship, a repurposed diplomatic cruiser hilariously ill-equipped for hosting war heroes, especially ones that mistook sacred relics for footrests. She was lounging in the command room, sipping instant coffee from a mug that read, "I do my own stunts," usually by accident, when SANDY chimed in. "You've been summoned to address the Tri-Court of Interpretative Warfare on allegations of simulation misconduct, psychological subversion, and one count of excessive humor during sacred rites." Maddox blinked. "They're charging me with being funny?" "It's a Class 2 disruption of ceremonial gravitas," SANDY replied, deadpan. "Punishable by formal lecture, public disapproval, or mandatory enrollment in emotional awareness seminars led by a gelatinous monk." "Oh no," Maddox gasped, mock horror in her voice. "Not another feeling circle." She arrived at the Tri-Court with the same grace she brought to everything, mild coffee stains, tactical boots, and a readiness to improvise. The court chamber was a swirling mess of sensory overload, filled with drifting holo sigils, judgmental, alien stares, and a background hymn sung entirely in harmonic disapproval. A crystalline judge began the proceedings with the tone of someone personally offended by her existence. "Human Maddox, you stand accused of destabilizing sacred systems through mockery, nonlinear tactics, and weaponized irreverence. How do you plead?" She shrugged. "Guilty of being awesome?" 1,000 diplomatic monocles metaphorically shattered. The prosecutor, a sentient ink cloud with delusions of theatrical gravitas, launched into a 20-minute slideshow presentation, attempting to prove that Maddox's victory was the result of cultural sabotage. She interrupted slide 14, labeled Exhibit C, Disrespectful Crouching, with a raised hand. "That's called landing, buddy. You try doing it." In 0G, with a pulled hamstring and an AI doing commentary like a sassy NPR host, the court deliberated in a haze of vibrating disapproval. Meanwhile, outside the chamber, a galactic news storm erupted. Maddox's combat footage had gone viral across 17 networks. Fan accounts sprang up, some worshipping her as the avatar of unscripted warfare, others parodying her training regimen, which was mostly just push-ups, caffeine, and aggressively not caring. The turning point came when a minor rebellion within the Frondar Guild launched a satirical Strataclash simulator titled Maddox Mayhem, gravity optional, where players win by exploiting loopholes and trolling elite opponents with duct tape and one-liners. Downloads exploded. The council's worst fear had come true. Maddox wasn't just a glitch, she was trending. Back in the court, just as the judges prepared to hand down a sentence, likely involving soul atonement therapy or a mandatory apology performance, a priority override flashed across every tribunal screen. The Sovereign Strataclash simulation core was under critical threat. An unknown recursive echo loop had destabilized the architecture, causing competitive AI systems to self-combust in loops of simulated inferiority complexes. One AI had literally screamed, "Why aren't I funny enough?" before deleting itself. The only person to have survived and beaten the simulation without crashing it? Reagan Maddox. The court fell silent. All eyes turned to her. "So, you need me to fix the game you tried to punish me for beating?" she asked, arms crossed. Irony just rear-ended your sense of justice. Reluctantly, painfully, she was reinstated into the Strataclash system to stabilize the code. She entered the failing core interface, walking calmly into a realm unraveling at the seams, where simulation gods were glitching like discount fireworks and virtual arenas collapsed under their own symbolism. She didn't bring tech. She brought instinct, humor, pure chaos. She rewrote half the logic using emotional sarcasm loops, patched the hierarchy buffers with random acts of who the hell cares, and in the final moment, deleted the ceremonial chant subroutine with a smirk and the line, Ctrl+Alt+Get over yourself. The simulation stabilized. Then it evolved. The system rebooted, not in the image of galactic pomp, but in her style, adaptive, unpredictable, refreshingly irreverent. When she emerged, the council stood stunned, their simulation saved not by code, but by the one force they never accounted for: human absurdity. The Veil Zorith retracted their protest. The rational harmonics quietly updated their theorem on unpredictability. Earth was offered full council membership. Maddox declined the medals, the statue, and the honorific title, Unpredictable Architect of Controlled Chaos, requesting only one thing: her own parking spot labeled Chief Maddox. If you can read this, you're in my way. As she boarded her ship, she turned back one last time and said, "You want to survive the future? Start thinking like the problem, or at least start laughing at it." Then she left. The galaxy never fully recovered, and it never dared host another simulation. Without asking, what would Maddox do?